I'm here today with Dr. Neal Barnard, who is the president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He's the founder of the Barnard Medical Center and the author of, 10,000 books and journals and things. And I don't think you sleep ever, seriously. Although we've talked about sleep, in a lot of our series. Very important. But today we are going to be, first of all, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
I want to talk today about physical exercises that protect your brain. So what part of the brain is the key for memory?
Well, it really starts in a part of the brain at the base of the brain called the hippocampus. And that word, by the way, is Latin for seahorse. Some imaginative anatomist looked at it and said, that looks like a seahorse. It's sort of a crescent-shaped organ. It's in the base of the brain, and it has to decide, first of all, what is worth remembering. If you think about it, every second of every day, there are things that you are seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and so forth. If you walk or drive down the road, there are a million things. If you recorded them all, your brain would overload. So the hippocampus says, this is important, remember this, that is important, let that go. And then once it has decided what needs to be remembered, the cerebral hemispheres, which are the large convoluted parts at the exterior of the brain, that's where the memories are actually encoded.
Okay. Well, tell me about the research at Columbia University where they invited a group of out-of-shape volunteers to start an exercise program. What did they find?
Right. What they did is they brought in young people, out-of-shape young people, and they said, let's do some aerobic exercise. And when I'm saying aerobic exercise, they said, take a bike or do a treadmill or do a Stairmaster or whatever works for you, but do it. And do it 40 minutes, do it 4 times a week, and let's see what happens. And 3 months later, they looked in their brains, and what they found was very, very exciting. The brain structures were getting more blood vessels. There were some new brain cells being formed, and specifically in the hippocampus. So this old idea of your brain is what you got, and it's going to gradually deteriorate. There isn't anything you can do. We now know that exercise sort of builds the brain back up. Blood vessels, bringing in oxygen, bringing in nutrients, and actual new brain cells being built. So that was very, very exciting.
Wow, that is exciting. What about the researchers at the University of Illinois? What did they find when they recruited 59 adults over 64?
Yeah, what they were looking at, it was the other end of the age spectrum. And the idea is, okay, you are at risk now. And so they actually did a couple of studies that were really interesting. What they looked at is they brought in people, asked them to exercise, and they showed that as time goes on, you can actually reverse some of the signs of memory loss. I think the most telling experiment they did lasted a year, and they started everyone off. They said 10 minutes, 10-minute walk, not a trudge, but as brisk as you can be for 10 minutes, 3 times a week. And the next week, 15 minutes. The next week, 20 minutes. They worked their way up to a 40-minute walk 3 times a week. And at the end of a year, they showed 2 things. First is, in formal testing, people were able to remember, they were able to learn significantly better than a year earlier. And they looked at the hippocampus, the seat of memory, which is gradually shrinking for most people. And in this case, it was starting to expand. So the idea being that you're reversing the aging process to a degree. I don't mean to say that that will live forever or that will end all memory problems, but it really shows that you could plug in some physical exercise, and this is going to help not just your experience of being able to remember, but physically your brain is actually changing in a really good way.
So does this mean that exercise is going to protect us against memory problems as we get older?
Well, I think it will help, yeah. I do think it will help, yes.
Well, how does it work?
And if a person has memory problems already, if it hasn't gone too far,
right,
I think it can reverse that to a degree.
Wow. Yay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's giving hope for, I don't know about you, but I'll walk from one room and go, what did I come in here for?
Happens. No, it happens all the time. And once in a while, this is okay, especially if we're sleep deprived, words and names will drop out. But if it's all day, if it's every day, that makes us worried. And that's time to intervene.
So how does this work? How does it help our memory?
Short answer, don't know for sure, but we do have some candidates. There is a compound called BDNF, that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a mouthful. Basically, it means neurotropic means that this compound in the blood builds new connections from one brain cell to the next.
Right.
And when you look at people who exercise, the amount of BDNF goes right up. And this is important because when we look at patients who have Alzheimer's disease, their levels are low. So the idea is, let's start now, let's exercise, let's build that up, and let's see what we can do to protect against the aging process.
So if somebody did have Alzheimer's, would that help them, or to increase that, like exercise?
I think it may, but I also suspect that in the early stages where a person's memory is starting to sputter, if we intervene at that point with a healthy diet and physical exercise, I think we can do some good.
Right.
However, as the disease progresses, the brain connections are being destroyed and the brain cells themselves are being lost.
Right.
And there comes a time, I think fairly early on in the course of Alzheimer's, where it is no longer reversible no matter what you do. So,
because I know that my mother-in-law was in the nursing home for Alzheimer's, and you couldn't stop her. And they put a pedometer on her. She literally walked 10 miles a day in a loop around the building. And that, I never saw changes, and she actually declined. But then again, she was also eating the sad diet at the nursing home. So, I mean, I didn't see.
Yes, it's a huge problem. My parents ended up in a nursing home, and they had this idea that you're older, you don't want to change, you don't want to eat healthy things, you want to reap the rewards of life, and so that meant eating junk food, and that's wrong. And when I give talks in nursing homes, the residents don't. They don't want to be on pills. They don't want to be unhealthy. They want healthy food. It's just this prejudice against older people, thinking that they have lost interest in health.
Well, to a certain extent, I mean, my father-in-law is still alive, and he still has this mentality that, I mean, he's had several heart attacks already. He's got epileptic seizures, and all he wants to do is eat cookies and ice cream.
Yes. Well, and that's not because of age. He was probably the same way when he was 16. And it's not that people become so rooted in their ways. And at whatever age a person may be, we should offer them the benefit of health. And that means understanding it and educating them as what it can do. There are plenty of people who say no, in part because what you're saying is new and they may not believe it's true. Right. That's completely understandable. And people are right to be skeptical, because there's a lot of snake oil out there.
I know.
But this is changing. And back when people were saying quitting smoking will prevent cancer, there was a lot of skepticism until it became everyday knowledge. When we talk about bacon causes colorectal cancer, we get skepticism now, even though it is quite clear. So that's always part of it. But my point being that we make a big mistake if we assume that older folks are only interested in pigging out and aren't interested in health. I think just the opposite is true.
So do you have any suggestions for starting an exercise program?
Yes. Start small. This is not the time to be training for a marathon. This is time to get active. So I like what they did in Illinois, where they said, all right, we want aerobic exercise. That's aerobic, whatever gets you breathing more quickly. So 10-minute walk, great. And as I say, not a trudge. Let's get going, but not so fast that you can't speak. So do it about 3 times a week for ultimately 40 minutes, but you work your way up to it. Or you can do more than that. That's perfectly fine. And then you can add other kinds of exercise as well.
Well, I'm going to jump in and add, because I've got a Fitbit.
Yep.
And boy, let me tell you, when you can find someone, because they have challenges on Fitbit, when you can find someone that is right at about your level, not someone who's like 10,000 steps ahead of you, because you'll never win and you get defeated. Or on the other hand, if you find someone who you're doing it and competing against who's not very active, you're going to win and it's no fun for either. But when you find someone that is right at your level, oh my gosh, I found the woman, we go back and forth. And I swear to God, I'll go to bed and I'll be 2,000 steps ahead and I'll get up and she'll be like 5,000 steps ahead of me. And it's like, Were you sleepwalking? What were you
Yes.
doing? Did you put the dog on the treadmill with the Fitbit? What? Come on. But then that makes me motivated to get up and
Yes.
start moving. So when you
Yeah.
can get that competition, whoa.
Yeah, there are so many ways to do this, and pedometers are fun just for that reason. You don't really need it, but it's a motivator for many
It is.
people. And the other piece of it is a lot of people think, oh, I'm working all day long. I'm in my office. I get up and I go to the coffee machine. I go back. I must be walking 10,000 steps. You're not. You
No.
get one of those things, clip it on your belt, and you'll see how sedentary people are. But once you do that, it is a motivator, and I think they're great for that reason.
Well, what's funny is my kids make fun of me in school because I'm upstairs. I'm in the front of the classroom and I'm going like this. Yeah, I got to get my steps in, and I'm teaching and I'm doing this at the same time, and they're
Right.
making fun of me, and I don't care. But now now they've gotten to the point at the end of by the end of the school year, they're like, "How many steps today?" And
Yes.
they're asking and they want to know. And who are you beating her today? Are you ahead? And then I'll show
Well,
them the steps and.
it's good for them too.
Exactly. So I'm modeling my behavior instead of just standing there like a lump.
No question.
I'm moving. So, how do we find our target zone?
There are folks who go too far. I'm talking about a super motivated person, and this can be dangerous. Somebody had a heart attack. They were 58 years old, and they thought, gee, wait a minute, how could this happen? And so they try to eat better, and they go to the gym, and they're working out. You have to remember that you may still be a little bit fragile, and the older you get, your vulnerability goes up. There are different ways to do it, but my more formal way is you take 220, the number 220, and subtract your age.
Okay.
So let's say I'm 60 years old. 220 minus 60 is 160. My pulse should never go above 160.
Okay.
Or 212 minus 50. If I'm 50 years old, that's 170. Your pulse should never go above 170. But that's really pushing it. That is the absolute max. So once you got that max rate, stay about 60 or 80% of that, and you're going to be okay. So that's the more formal way. 220 minus your age, take that number, that's your absolute max, and stay really about 60 to 80% of that. My more informal way is, let's say you and I are out for a walk. I want to make sure that you walk enough that you could feel your pulse is actually getting faster, your breathing is a little bit faster, but not so fast that you can't easily carry on a conversation with somebody. That'll keep you kind of in the right range.
Well, that's what I like about the Fitbit too. Is it tracks your heartbeat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can
that's
see
great.
that. So, what are 3 essentials to a successful exercise program?
Well, you know the reason why they fail. They fail
please
because
tell me, please.
they fail for everybody. The reason they fail is because people they don't treat it like it's important. If there's something, let's say there's something you think is important, a meeting, a vacation, getting married, you name it, whatever's important in your life, you schedule it. So you got to schedule exercise, a doctor's appointment, you name it, you schedule it and then you do it. So with exercise, people think, well, I should do it. Well, you're not going to do it unless you schedule it. So schedule it, write it down. Secondly, make it social. And when I say make it social, I just do it with somebody else, somebody who will be upset if you don't show up, because that way it's going to happen. So you say, okay, Jeannie, that's you and me. We're going to exercise next week, Wednesday at 9, fine. And if I don't show up, it's no good. And then keep it regular. Just put it on a schedule. So whatever the schedule is, it could be every day, half-hour walk at lunchtime, great. 1 hour, 3 times a week, or I'll do 2 by myself and 1 with you, or whatever it is. But those are my keys. Schedule it, make it social, keep it regular, and you're going to be fine.
What type of exercise should we be focusing on? Is there one that we should be doing more than others?
We've been talking about aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise protects the heart, it protects the brain, it has many good benefits, but it's not the only thing. You have heard of strength training, where you're building your musculature, and that's important because your muscles are calorie burners. And also flexibility training. The person who can no longer bend down and pick something up or whatever, that's a person who has just lost their flexibility, but you can get it back. And let me give you a quick tip on this. For strength training and for flexibility, these are things where it's not immediately obvious how to go about it. Whereas aerobic exercise, I'm going to say, lace up your sneakers, go out for a walk. I encourage people to have at least one session with a personal trainer. Go to a gym, go to a fitness center, whatever it is, and just once, maybe twice, have somebody work with you, because they're going to know what you need. They're going to know what your limitations are. They can map out a program that's really individualized for you, and it's really good investment to do that.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, what if there's someone out there who just can't exercise for whatever reason? They have a health issue.
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Oh, well, it happens all the time. In our research studies, people come in, they may be massively obese, so that exercise, meaningful exercise, is really challenging for them. A person might have an amputation. You might have a neurological problem, and so you might say, well, for me, exercise is really limited, or maybe right now it's just not realistic. The good news is that all of our research studies that focus on what food will do, we always keep exercise out of it. We keep exercise constant, because I don't want that to mess up my results. I want to zero in on what food will do. And that means that when you make diet changes, especially the low-fat vegan diet that I've been cheerleading for all this time, that has benefits whether you exercise or not. So exercise adds to the benefit of a healthy diet. And by the way, it doesn't replace it. So if a person cannot do meaningful exercise, you can still benefit. A diet change will still help you, and it will help you enormously.
Well, what are some of the benefits of exercise?
Well, we talked about the benefit for the brain. Apart from that, there is some weight improvement, although I think it's oversold to a degree. Some people imagine I'm just going to power off all the pounds. The effect is modest, but people who exercise do burn some calories, and over the long run, it tends to keep the weight from coming back. So that's good. It also has effects you'll see on a blood test. Your HDL, your good cholesterol, will go up a little bit the more you exercise. Blood pressure comes down. Blood sugar comes down. Your exercising muscles really just pull the glucose out of the blood. So all those are good, and they don't happen unless it's regular. And so that goes back to my schedule it, make it social, make it regular. And if you do those, then you get the benefit. Just like taking a medication. You don't take your medication once, you take it 3 times a day or whatever it is, until the urinary tract infection is gone, or whatever the case is. So use exercise in that same way.
Well, those are for the body. What about the mind? What are psychological benefits from exercise?
Okay, great. Super. We talked a little bit about the effect on memory. That's good. But we did a study with Geico, the car insurance company, where we used vegan diets for people with weight problems or diabetes. And it helps, obviously. But as time went on, we found that their mood was better. And when people exercise physically, their mood improves as well. And I don't really know why that is, but we suspect it's the endorphins that are released, except that even in people who aren't huge, they're not running marathons or something like that, their mood is improved by it. So the combination of food and exercise, I think, is a really good mood booster. One other thing, a lot of people don't sleep very well. They lie, and here's why. They've been sedentary all day, working at their desk. The only thing they're using is maybe their tips of their fingers. And then they lie down at night and they put their head on the pillow, and they don't sleep very well. Kids who are really physically active all the time, because that's part of their routine, they sleep because their muscles are tired. Their muscles demand it. If our muscles haven't been used, we're just not tired enough to sleep. So I encourage people to get some physical exercise, not just for their mood, not just for their brain, but it will actually help them to sleep better. And this is true not just of the aerobic exercise, but any exercise that mildly strains, strains the muscles a little bit, works the muscles. Gentle push-ups from your knees if you need to, rather than your feet. Squats, anything that makes the muscles just do a little bit of work. Then you lie down and your brain says, hey, I want you to chill out because I need to heal those muscles from that workout that you did, and you will sleep more deeply.
Excellent. I was just thinking back to why this is happening. How about like in the blood flow? I mean, you're getting your blood's flowing better, and you're able to get some of the toxins out.
You're getting oxygen in, nutrients in, toxins out. exactly.
I mean, because we're being exposed to so many toxins and so many chemicals. It's incredible.
And even if you live in the most pristine area known to humanity, your cells are like little factories, and they're producing energy, and they make wastes of their own.
Right.
And so the more we get the blood flowing, the more we get those out too. And a healthy diet helps as well.
Okay. So you made a key point that that this is essential to exercise along with a healthy diet, but not in place of it. So could you expand on that just a little bit?
Very, 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 very important. Earlier, you and I have been talking about what food will do for the brain. So if you are only lacing up your sneakers and eating whatever, you're really not going to get the benefit that you would get from using the two in combination. Where this becomes really malignant, I think, is there are people with heart disease who think, I can eat whatever I want because I can exercise it off. You cannot. You cannot exercise off cholesterol. It just does not happen. And as a matter of fact, scary statistics. There have been several studies that have looked at marathon runners. They have more atherosclerosis than sedentary people. I mean,
Really?
they have more blockages in their arteries than sedentary people. Now, could that be because the exercise really overstrains them when they get to that level? Maybe. Another reason is that when you're burning off 4,000 or 5,000 calories in that kind of running, and you are replenishing it with cheeseburgers,
Right.
Your exercise is driving you to eat more, and if what you're eating is junk, that's no good. So you want to really use exercise with healthy food, not in place of it.
So true. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. And we're going to be back in part 6. We're going to be talking about medicine and health conditions that affect memory. So I look forward to that.
Likewise. Thanks so much.